500 posts in 14 months, one client. I wasn't struggling financially. I just walked away from a 20-year career at Verizon, voluntary separation package in hand, but the business I was building to replace it was using a model designed for full-time content creators. I was ignoring 20 years of experience and trying to become something I wasn't. I had a financial model, it was just the wrong one. Then one shift, not a new tactic, not a new platform. One shift in the model itself produced 75,015 clients in 10 days. Today, we're breaking down financial architecture, what it actually looks like to build a business that fits your life instead of building a different version of the corporate grind with your name on it. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand why revenue without architecture keeps you stuck, why your financial stress isn't a sales problem, and you'll have three frameworks to build the financial infrastructure that puts you on a trajectory toward 20K a month in profit on 15 to 20 hours a week.
Yeah, and when it comes to everything that we're going to be talking about, this would be highly applicable to you if you're someone who has real expertise, right? You probably have 10, 20 years of professional experience, maybe even things that you've done on the side that you've developed the quality skill set around. You're someone who's trying to replace their active income right now. You feel like your revenue is either non-existent or inconsistent. So 1 month seems super promising, the next month is crickets. You're working harder than you were in corporate, and you're earning a fraction of what you're actually worth. You spent money on courses, programs, ads, lead gen, and most of it, if not all of it, got you no return on your investment overall. And you know your number, but have no idea how to hit it without recreating the corporate grind of, long nights, early mornings, a bunch of meetings, and dealing with a bunch of people, whether it's colleagues, stakeholders, or whoever that you just really, really don't want to deal with. Now, the other side of what we're talking about is you being able to wake up knowing exactly where revenue comes from in your business and not having to hope that some new break comes along. Being able to have 20,000 a month profit because the model that you designed was fit around 15 to 20 hours a week of you working instead of 60 to 80 hours a week. Being able to leverage your actual expertise that you've actually been dismissing, because a lot of people find themselves having all of these skills and expertise, but they don't want to do something outside of corporate related to it because they've never seen it packaged in a way that could still be ideal for them. And, you're someone that the market actually pays a premium to, not because you're an influencer, but because you found the right people with a real problem that your expertise and skill sets can actually solve.
I'm Ryan. I spent 20 years at Verizon working my way up to leading digital product strategy for Apple, Amazon, Google, and Samsung. When I started building something on my own, I grabbed the wrong financial model. I tried to become a full-time content creator instead of leveraging what I already knew. I did 500 posts over 14 months, and that got me one client. And like I said, then one shift in the model, one strategic partnership built on my actual expertise produced 75,015 clients in 10 days. Same skills, same person, different architecture. I'm also a husband and a father building this on part-time hours because the whole point is a business that fits your life.
Absolutely. And I'm LD. I did 12 years in the Air Force, replaced my military income year one, walked away year two. And I've consistently made six figures in 5 different industries like direct sales, digital marketing, high ticket closing, coaching, growth consulting. And I'll be honest with you, the first few times it was me grinding myself, the square peg, forcing my way into the round hole. And I know that most of you guys can really, really understand where that's coming from. Like, I made the money, but the model was never built around who I actually was. But the last few times I flipped it. Right. I took an alignment first approach and sought out square holes that naturally fit who I am, the square peg. And that absolutely changed everything. And after leading thousands of people on paid coaching calls and using the same approach that helped Ryan, produce that 75K in 10 days from one strategic partnership, I can tell you, we wish we had this from the beginning. And in this Liftoff Live series, we're showing you the approach so that you can use it to get to the next level too.
Yeah, and LD said something to me that completely changed how I looked at my own business financially. He said that you don't need to fix your income by chasing more revenue. You fix it by building a model that deserves the revenue. So LD, can you break that down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. because I've spanned so many different industries, just out of just a thirst for knowledge and being open and optimistic about opportunities, especially compared to the average person who's like, well, what if it doesn't work? I've always in my life just kind of leaned into, well, what if it does work? That'll be amazing, right? And it's one of those things where when I really started to understand that the alignment and architecture dictated what you got from an opportunity. You could be someone who is maybe in network marketing and you're kind of chasing after friends and family, and that is only going to get you so far, right? And you probably won't like where it gets you long term. But you could also be the person who says, I'm not going to talk to any one of my friends and family. I'm going to go out there and leverage digital marketing skills and build maybe a sales funnel that has people that I don't even know who just want whatever it is that I'm offering. And they're able to go through that process overall. And because it's not limited to the people you know, it's actually opened up to the people that you don't know. And there's way more of those people than the people that you actually know. So it's one of those things where, it's the same opportunity, but the alignment allows you to keep your friends and family as people who actually want to be around you. And the architecture puts it in a position for you to be able to, really, really realize that uncapped income potential in a business model like that. Same with affiliate marketing, direct sales, insurance, finance, real estate, all of those different things where you're basically, pitching people, and traditionally it's usually people that saying, hey, let me sell your house, hey, let me help you find a house. Like it's not limited to just network marketing. But here's what I will tell you is that what most people get wrong about money in business, and I include us in that for a long time, is everyone thinks financial success is a revenue problem. If I just had more clients, if I just hit, 10K a month, if I just get more traffic. But revenue without architecture is just a more chaotic version of the same stress you had in corporate. It's a different source of income, but the same anxiety. And here's what we've discovered on this journey. Financial architecture isn't about how much money you make. It's about the model that produces it. It's about knowing your number, not some guru's case study number, and building a machine that produces it on part-time hours by leveraging the competitive advantages you already have. And it comes down to three things, and we're going to talk through those three things today. First, you already know your number, but you don't know how to build a business that hits it without recreating corporate. Second, your time and money are going into the traffic game when they should be going into discovering your competitive advantage and finding the pockets of markets that need it. And third, the method that actually works for experts isn't the guru playbook. It's one aligned offer deployed in rooms where your ideal clients like actually are. And I'll say that one more time. The third is going to be the method that actually works for experts isn't the guru playbook. It's one aligned offer deployed in rooms where your ideal clients already are. That's the financial architecture shift. That's what turned 500 posts and one client into 75K and 15 clients in 10 days. Not more hustle, a better model. So Ryan, when you hear financial architecture, like what does that mean to you now versus what it would have meant to you 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago, if you said financial architecture to me, I would have heard, how do I make more money? And that's pretty much it. That was the entire frame before: more revenue, more clients, more content. It was like, just generally speaking, more. And I think that's where most people are. They think that the answer to financial stress is just a bigger number at the top. Now it means something completely different to me. It means, do I have a model underneath the revenue that actually makes sense? What are my inputs? What are my outputs? What does it cost me in time and energy to generate $1? Because I was generating revenue during the content grind. I did get one client from the content and several others from referrals, but the model that produced that one client was so broken that scaling it would have just meant more of the same grind for marginally more money. So the architecture at its core was wrong, and no amount of hustle is going to fix bad architecture.
Yep, 100%, man. And that is a great segue into the first framework, which is going to be talking about part-time money models, man. So most experts who leave corporate or start building on the side already know their number. I think that that's literally the easiest part. You know what your mortgage costs, you know what your lifestyle requires, what it takes to not look back. But here's what no one has really shown you. It's how to get to that number without just trading your corporate job for a business you own that runs you the exact same way. A different logo, same grind. And the reason that keeps happening is because you're ignoring the one thing that would actually get you there, the skills and expertise that you already have. And look, I get it. After 10, 15, 20 years in an industry, a lot of people develop a jaded perspective about their own expertise. They think, I don't want to do that anymore. So they go learn something completely new, content creation, funnels, ads, instead of figuring out how to deploy what they already know through a model that actually fits their life and that they would actually enjoy. Because when you really stop and look at it, don't you think it's kind of funny that you would take your one anecdotal experience and say, you know what? The rest of this entire industry is going to be just like this, and I want nothing to do with it. When it's just not true. We can take the transportation industry, for example. Like you may be someone who dealt with like 18 wheel trucks, right? And there's the truck drivers and dealing with all of that stuff. But that's not the entire transportation industry. You have like airplanes, cargo planes, right? Where it's usually pilots. And I think that we can all agree, not talking about the quality of the person, but just the overall temperament is kind of different from, someone who's been driving trucks for 15 years versus someone who's been a pilot for 15 years. And maybe they flew for American Airlines and they just wanted to dial things back. So they got into cargo. So they're going to be way more chill, way more relaxed, it's going to be a lot easier to work with them, and they're probably going to show up with things already kind of rolled out for you for the most part, right? So it's one of those things that when you flip it, when you build around your expertise instead of running from it, you stop building someone else's business with your name on it. You start extracting real profit from the market based on what you're genuinely great at. And the model doesn't require you to deal with the same stuff that made you want to leave corporate in the first place. I'll say that again. The model doesn't require you to deal with the same stuff that made you want to leave corporate in the first place. So if someone handed you their side business the same way a company would hand you a product to fix, what was the first thing you'd look at, Ryan? Because I think that most people have never thought about their business like a product.
Yeah, honestly, the first thing I'd look at is the same thing I looked at every time a product landed on my desk at Verizon. I would look first at the unit economics. What does it actually cost you in time, in money, in energy to acquire one client? And what does that one client generate? Because most side business owners I talk to can't answer that question. They can tell you they're busy, they can tell you they're posting every day, but they can't tell you what it actually costs them to get one client. When I was at Verizon, we would evaluate a strategic product for Apple, Amazon, Samsung, or Google. We had a very simple diagnostic. What's the input? What's the output? And what's the conversion rate between them? So if you're putting in 40 hours a week into your content and you're as a part of your business and you're getting one client out of it, that's data. That data tells you the model is broken. It doesn't tell you that you're not working hard enough, but most entrepreneurs don't even have that number. They're not, they're just grinding and hoping, and there's not an actual scoreboard where they're keeping track of things like this. The second thing that I look at, which almost nobody does, is revenue per hour, not just total revenue, revenue per actual hour of work. So because a business that makes $5,000 a month on 60 hours a week is a completely different animal than one that makes $5,000 a month on 15 hours a week. One of those is a business, and the other is a job with worse benefits. And if you calculate that number, um, and excuse me, until you calculate that number, you don't actually know which one you have. So that's looking at it through the product management lens. It's not magic, it's just a diagnostic framework. And I think that most people have never been taught to think about their business this way. They've been taught to think about content strategy and funnels and followers, and nobody's ever sat them down and said, let's look at the actual numbers and let's figure out where the machine is broken. And even better, before you start anything, map out all of the inputs and outputs and ask yourself, is this thing even viable? That was always the first question that we started with.
Yeah, awesome stuff, man. And with that, we're going to jump into a Reddit story that, really brings what we're talking about to life right now. So go ahead, Ryan.
All right. This Reddit story is titled Built a Successful Business but Can't Get Out of My Own Way. So this is based on an entrepreneur who has what looks like a successful business from the outside, but is living paycheck to paycheck and frequently maxing out credit cards just to maintain liquidity. His revenue structure is tied to the size of his client's workforce. As they expand, his earnings grow, but as they contract or stall, his income becomes unpredictable. So he has no control over the primary revenue input and no financial model to buffer against volatility.
Gotcha. So what I'm hearing is, his revenue dependent on external variable he can't control. He's maxing out credit cards despite having clients. So again, this is a great example of revenue without architecture. Um, he's looking at it from a volume strategy for a structural problem. And one thing I will give him is that his business instinct is strong, but he just never built a financial foundation underneath it. And I would say that with this model or with this situation, one of the first things I would want to do with him is ask him: is he actually, does he enjoy what he does in this business? Like, is this just a business that makes money because he has a family and everyone's always seen him as successful, or is this something that he actually enjoys and has some level of passion around? And if it is, then I would say, well, let's double down on one of the ideas in that war chest of ideas that you have, because typically when you're passionate about something or when you really enjoy it, you never stop coming up with different ideas of how to make it better and how to serve your overall target audience. The next thing I would do is I would look at putting in place some type of monthly recurring revenue model, whether it was him building a community for the people that would be more on the lower end of the customers. So like a low ticket community. And as a part-time money model, it's not just low ticket, it's a low maintenance community, meaning you have a community. These people are able to consume information from you. You're able to do things live, or have ask me anythings or Q&As when you want to, not every day, not 3 times a day. You're not like servicing clients and doing all the rest of that stuff. And no one has an expectation inside of the community for you to act as a community manager. So people are happy to pay you once a year or once a month, which in his case, I would definitely say once a month, and let's make it valuable enough. And then I would also add in booster opportunities, meaning if they pay $47 a month, I would also have something in there that if they want it to be inside of the intimate conversations and maybe have one-on-one conversations once or twice a month, that they could pay something extra in order to do that. So he's able to start having, that financial foundation in his business where it's predictable income. He knows that, hey, with 100 paying community members at $97 a month, that gives me $9,700 a month, right? Yeah, right. So, so it's one of those things where even if that doesn't solve all of his problems, that's $9,700 that he didn't have in his current situation right now, and that gives him that breathing room, that tapers off the anxiety and just puts him in a position to make more sobering decisions, right? Like he can make decisions from a more sober place. So Ryan, what's your overall take on this, man?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you said about the recurring revenue streams. I mean, the fact that the guy has clients, he has a business that works, and he's still having to max out credit cards to keep the lights on. I mean, that's the definition of a model problem. His entire revenue, all of his revenue is tied to a variable that he has no control over, and that is scary as a business owner. There's no buffer, no margin architecture. There's no way to predict what month looks like. And honestly, I could relate to this more than I'd like to admit. During that period, I was in the content grind because I did generate revenue. I got the one client from content. I was getting other clients from referrals. But if you'd asked me, how do you get the next one? I had no answer. There was no system. There was no repeatable process. I got lucky enough times to keep things moving forward, but that's not architecture. That's like just buying a lottery ticket and just winning those little jackpots enough to keep you moving forward. So this guy is slightly different version of the same trap. So he's generated the revenue, but the model underneath it is so fragile that one bad month from one client could put him under.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. So if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I am in a very similar place and I want to do something about it, or you're someone who's like, hey, I don't want to ever be in that place. What can I do now to, kind of what preventative measures, right? And it's a 3-step action plan. And what it really, really comes down to is called the expertise extraction audit. And if you've checked out any of our other episodes, you're going to realize that every action plan that we offer in these episodes is going to be 3 steps. It's going to be super simple. And realistically, it is a actionable sliver of the more in-depth frameworks and strategies that we use inside of Liftoff Lab, which is a premium community that literally helps you get all of this stuff off the ground. Obviously, lift off, right? Simple stuff. So again, this is something that you can use right now, but just know that there's a much more in-depth version that is 100% aligned with each and every person who uses it, and it puts you in the center to make sure that any outputs that come from it are all around you. If you want to obviously learn more about Liftoff Lab and the different frameworks and things that we're going to be using, and that you can, first off, there's a link in the description for the wait list, and so that you will be one of the first people to get information about Liftoff Lab when it opens. But secondly, there's a short quiz in the description as well, and you'll be able to check that out. So the 3 steps. Step 1 is going to be understanding what projects from your past or even in your current business, what projects have you enjoyed? And not for the reward, but for the journey, the doing of the work itself, right? So step 2 would be you make that list. Step 1 is making that list. Step 2 is you take that list to AI. I recommend Perplexity or Claude or something like that. You take it to AI and you have a quick brainstorming session with AI, and you give it a little bit about your background. You give it the enjoyment signals and the overall market alignment. And if you don't know any of these things, it's like, dude, I don't know any of that. You say, hey, this is what I enjoy doing about these projects. This is a little bit about me. And I don't know how to find the best things about what it is that I want to do, but I want to find something that I'm going to enjoy, and I want to find the market that would align with that so that we can move forward. And what AI is typically going to do, especially if you're using Perplexity, because it's heavily connected to like search engines and that type of stuff, is it's going to give you outputs, and it puts you in a position to evaluate the outputs. A lot of people get stuck because when they go into brainstorming sessions, they're limited to what's in their mind and what they will allow their mind to be able to access, right? But when you put it on AI, it's like AI is going to be the one going out there doing all of that stuff, and you just get to evaluate. And if you're not getting the input you want, you can give it direction, which is super, super important. So just a super quick example, which is step 3, just to kind of open your mind, is the insurance adjusting example. So by trade, I am a contracting officer. That's what I did in the Air Force. And a contracting officer is an acquisition professional. I went through 4 years of an integrated Harvard Business School to be able to, obligate the government's money in a quality way, right? I had a warrant, and it was one of those things where when requirements came across my desk, do the solicitation, do all of this stuff, right? And when it came down to it, grab the pen, sign the stuff, and whoever whoever we were buying this stuff for, they were able to get it, use it, and life was great, right? Well, Basically, what that comes down to is account management, right? Account management being paired with your ability to look through deep regulations. So for contracting, it was the federal acquisition regulations. Well, what about insurance adjusting? Insurance adjusting is basically account management being paired with being able to look at the policy and make quality decisions and communicate with the customer based on what their policy says. And everyone's policy is different. There are foundational things in it, but everyone's policy is different. So when I realized that these were really, really close, I was like, oh, okay. So then I went on this search, this hunt for like, how can I get into this? Because I already have a competitive advantage of being able to do this and doing it at a high level, right? So that turned into me finding a school in my city of Houston at the time, and they offered 3-day classes, 3-day live classes in person, right? It was $300. And once you're done with that class, you can go to the state and say, hey, I want my insurance adjusting license. And you pay like $90 or something like that. And then boom, you're a licensed insurance adjuster, right? And you don't need it to get hired by insurance companies. But if you want to be independent, then you definitely need this, right? And so anyway, me getting that turned into me getting contracts and things like that turned into, $250,000 over an 18-month period. And the bulk of that money was generated not from that 3-day course. I promise you that. It was generated from my ability to marry account management skills with a governing body of regulation, right? Whether it's the FAR over here or the insurance policy and over here. So, the super, super important part of this expertise extraction audit is that you allow yourself the ability, or you become way more open to the idea that you are sitting on a gold mine of expertise and skills that you've just never seen put in a way that you could actually realize. And that's why leveraging AI is going to be super, super key. And obviously, when you're in Liftoff Lab, you're able to bring those things to the community. You can bring them to us, and we can help you kind of sift through everything that you have going on to be able to make better decisions around that. And that moves us into, let's hear from the world. I love bringing quotes, analogies, and things from super notable people to be able to drive points home, because it's one thing seeing like two random guys on YouTube or TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. And like, yeah, these got 75K in 10 days. That's great. That's cool. But who are you? Well, it's like, what you'll realize is that there are high level people all throughout business in the online space, X, Y, and Z, that they align with what we're talking about at a very high level. You've just probably never looked at it through this clip. So Daniel Priestley said something that stopped me in my tracks. He said, 100K a month is not a goal, it's a speed. And when I heard that, I realized most people, including us at one point, are chasing a revenue number they copied from someone else's case study because it sounded impressive, right? And someone on a podcast said they hit 100K a month and now that's your target. But nobody stopped to ask, what does your life actually require? What's the model that produces your number on your hours? What's the model that produces your number on your hours? You don't need 100K a month if 20K a month gives you everything you want on 15 to 20 hours a week. You don't need 100K a month if 20K a month gives you everything you want on 15 to 20 hours a week. The goal isn't a big number. The goal is the right number inside the right model. Steve Jobs actually said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And I think that's one of the most important things for anyone in our audience to hear right now, because when you look at your 10, 15, 20 years of professional experience, it doesn't look like a business. It looks like a career. It looks like job titles and performance reviews and projects you completed for someone else. But when you connect those dots backwards, when you actually take inventory of what you've done, who you've helped, what problems you solved, that's when you start to see it. Those aren't just career experiences. Those are the building blocks of a business. You just haven't connected them to a model yet. And here's how I like to think about this. It's like selling your house Because the furniture doesn't fit. You walk in, you look around, and nothing feels right. The couch is too big for the living room. The desk doesn't fit inside the office, and you start thinking, maybe I need a different house, Ryan. But really, the house is fine. And I want you to think about it like the house is your expertise, your 15, 20 years of experience. There's nothing wrong with it. You just need to rearrange what's inside to match the life that you're building now. You don't need to start over. You don't need a new house. You need a new layout. And that's what building the right model does. It takes everything that's already there and it arranges it in a way that actually works for you. And I promise you, my season, and I still have like my licenses and that company and everything, but my seasons of being those 18 months of being in insurance adjusting, dude, that was the most fun I had in a long time, because I was able to get back to being the award-winning contracting officer in the military without having to deal with all of the red tape associated with being in the military, right? Like, it was so much fun being able to push papers, help people write up claims. I learned so much about like homes and like how homes are built, because obviously when hurricanes come, blah, 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 blah. But it's like that brought me so much joy, not only being able to leverage my expertise and skills in a quality way, but also being able to help people where they were looking at some of the worst days of their life, having everything taken away. And they're looking at this insurance company to make good on what they put in their policy, right? And for me, I was all about, we're going to give you everything you deserve, not a penny less and not a penny more. And I believe that that has served me very, very well during my time of doing insurance adjusting. So another way to look at it is it's like being a concert pianist and thinking you need to learn guitar because that's what's trending on YouTube right now. Right? You spent 20 years mastering an instrument, you're world class at it, but you look around and see people getting millions of views playing guitar. So you think, well, maybe I need to learn that instead. The instrument isn't the problem. You're incredible at what you do. The venue is the problem. You're trying to perform in a venue that wasn't built for your instrument. Put that same level of skill in the right room, in front of the right audience, through the right model, and you don't need to learn guitar. The piano was always enough. You just needed a stage that was built for it. Another great example is a chef with Michelin level experience who never opened a restaurant. And if you're in the food industry, that sounds kind of crazy, right? But that's just the path. Like, you get the experience, you open the restaurant, you grind 80 hours a week, and maybe in 5 years you break even. But this chef looked at the model and said, that's not the life that I want. So instead, he built a private dining business. Part-time money model. 3 nights a week, premium prices, curated experiences for small groups. And as everything is online and AI and everyone is fake, people are cherishing these types of things more now than ever before. So it was the same expertise, same level of skill that earned the Michelin recognition, but a completely different model. He worked fewer hours, earned more money, and actually loved the work because the model was designed around his life, not around the industry's default playbook. And that's the point. Your expertise doesn't change, the model does. Now, another example, and again, I'm literally beating this like a dead horse because I want you to leave this episode and you just have to go look in the mirror and say, man, I need to look at this from a different angle. Because if I don't look at this from a different angle, I'm going to keep getting or coming to the same conclusion that I came from. So there was an architect, and he had been designing buildings for a firm for years. And when he started thinking about going out on his own, he really dismissed his own expertise. He said it was too niche. He thought nobody's going to pay me independently for what I do. It's too specialized. So he started exploring completely unrelated business ideas. Sound familiar? Content creation, digital products, things that had nothing to do with what he'd spent his career mastering. And none of it worked because he was starting from zero in all of them. Eventually, someone convinced him to just try offering design consulting to property developers on the side, not a full-time architecture firm, just consulting. Strategic advice on a project basis. And what happened? The thing he thought was too niche turned out to be exactly what a specific market was willing to pay a premium for. He was booked out for months, and it only took him a couple of months to even get there. And not because he learned something new, but because he finally stopped dismissing the thing that he was already great at, right? And as far as studies go, there was a Harvard Business Review. They did research on career pivots, and they said people who transitioned from one career into something new, and what they found was that most of the successful career changers didn't start from scratch. What do you know? They didn't go learn a completely new skill or enter a totally unfamiliar industry. The ones who succeeded redeployed their expertise into adjacent markets. Well, there's an entire episode on adjacent audiences and markets and that type of stuff. But always fun seeing like Harvard Business Reviews that align with what we're freaking talking about, bro. So anyway, they took what they already knew and found a new context for it. And the failure rate for people who abandoned their experience entirely, who tried to reinvent themselves from the ground up, was significantly higher than those who built on what they already had. So the data backs it up exactly what we're talking about here. Your experience isn't baggage, it's your unfair advantage. The question is where you deploy it. All right. McKinsey also did a study on independent workers, freelancers, consultants, people building businesses on their own. And they found something really, really interesting. The fastest growing segment wasn't generalists, freelancers trying to do a little bit of everything. It was corporate professionals who were leveraging specialized expertise with 10 plus years in a specific domain, who went independent and brought that depth of knowledge with them. And the numbers were dramatic. Specialists with that level of experience were commanding 3 to 5 times higher rates than generalists, and the revenue was significantly more consistent. So if you're sitting on a decade or two of expertise and you're thinking about becoming a generalist content creator instead, the data says you're leaving money on the table. The market pays a premium for depth, not breadth. All right. And here's the thing. You already know this works because you do it in every other area of your life. When you had a complex problem to solve at work, a product launch that was going sideways, a client relationship that was falling apart, a project that was over budget, you didn't Google it and try to figure it out alone in your office. You went to the smartest people in the room, you pulled in your team, you asked for input from people who had solved something similar before. That's how you've operated your entire career. But when it comes to building a business outside of that, for some reason, you're trying to do it in total isolation. You're sitting alone at your kitchen table at 10 p.m. watching YouTube videos about funnels, and you won't ask for help from someone who's already built what you're trying to build. And maybe you have asked for help in the wrong places, where it's like, I bought this course, or I paid $10,000 for this, high ticket coaching program or mastermind or whatever the case may be. And it's one of those things where that's not it. There are right areas and right arenas for you to be able to ask for help. So it's one of those things where, the thing that made you successful in corporate, leveraging the people around you, is the exact thing you stopped doing when you went out on your own. And that moves us into the second framework, which is going to be all about, time and money, right? Having the right pace and implementing AI in the right areas of your business, especially the ones that you're weak at, so that you can really, really hone those things in. So most people think that, their time and money should go into the traffic game, more content, more ads, more leads, more eyeballs, because that's what every course teaches, right? And I'll tell you this, that every hour you put into a volume game that's designed for digital products is not, real expertise overall. Every dollar that goes into tactics with no infrastructure underneath it is going to hurt. Your actual hourly rate would embarrass you relative to your corporate experience when it comes to the fruits that you get from that. Not because you're not capable, but because you're playing the wrong game. Now, how I would think about this if I were you, and the way I invite you to think about this is, your time and money are best invested in 3 things: discovering your competitive advantages, finding healthy pockets of people with a toothache level pain nobody in their network can solve, and packaging your expertise to solve that specific toothache. Right? And what that usually gets you is you stop competing on volume and start competing on fit. One well-packaged offer in the right pocket, in the right community, in the right group of people outperforms 1,000 pieces of content. And that puts you in a position to be able to wake up knowing where your time goes and why. Revenue becomes predictable because it's tied to real market pain and not just algorithms. Like, please let's go viral and have the people that we go viral in front of, they actually are people who can be qualified and buy what we're offering, right? The model is built around your life overall. So um, I would say this, that like there are so many different examples related to this, and I'm just going to walk through a few of them. I actually have a long list, but I'm going to walk through a few of them. So um, I actually had a buddy, I'll leave his name out, but he was a facilitator, and he wanted to get out of his company, and he really didn't like the model of being a corporate facilitator. And the other thing was that he loved road trips. Like, this guy would take road trips like every other weekend, going wherever he could go in an 8-hour radius, right? And what he did was he basically paired those two things. So he became a roadshow facilitator, because typically in corporate companies, when you want to have a facilitator come in for the week or 2 weeks to do all of these things, it costs a pretty penny. And it's not that he was a bad facilitator. He was really, really good. He had won awards and all the rest of these things. He just didn't want to be in corporate anymore. And what ended up happening was he developed he put together a tour, a road to like a facilitator tour, where he contacted all of these corporate companies in all of these various cities where he just made his rounds. And he was able to get booked for 90 days straight doing those rounds. And that earned him his entire annual salary in 3 months, which allowed him to do what? Take more road trips, actually take trips where he was on a plane and do all of those crazy things, right? But it's like, think about that. So he made his entire salary in 3 months, in one quarter. He was able to do something that he's already good at, as well as enjoy being able to take paid road trips, right? Which is awesome, right? So just like there's 4 seasons in like every year has 4 seasons in most places, I want you to also look at, in business, there's also different seasons as well. And for a lot of you guys, you skipped over the first season, which is discovery. All right. You went right into building and trying to make money when you should have, respected the first season, but most of you guys didn't really know about it in the first place. And one of the last things I'll say is, there are people, and this is going to be my proof around like pacing and traffic. There are people who skipped over discovery and they just became a full-time content creator. And they're now at a place where they have 300,000 followers. And I know these people, and they make less than $6,000 a month because they skipped over the discovery phase. Because discovery is not just about like what's inside of me, but it's like, imagine being able to architect a way to extract profit from the market in the discovery phase, right? So the traffic game isn't the lead domino. Now, with all of that being said, and that amazing yapping that just happened, Ryan, talk to us about the difference between being busy and having an actual operating system, because you build systems for a living. Like, what does it actually look like when someone has a financial operating system underneath their business versus when they're just reacting to whatever happens?
That's a great question. The difference between those two things is night and day. And I know that because I've lived on both sides of the equation. So when I was in the content grind, 500 posts in 14 months, I was incredibly busy. I was working every morning, every evening. I was working on weekends. I'll never forget, my coach that it was assigned before LD, he literally told me, you will be creating reels while you're sitting on the toilet. And I'm slightly embarrassed to say that that is absolutely true. I felt productive, but I had zero operating system under any of it. And I didn't know my cost per client. I didn't know which activities were generating results and which ones were making me just feel like I was doing something productive. I was reacting to whatever felt urgent. Post today, respond to comments, try a new reel format, all those things with no system telling me what actually mattered. And here's what that looks like in practice. The entrepreneur without an operating system wakes up and asks, what should I work on today? And the answer is usually whatever's loudest: the email that just came in, the content idea that they saw somebody else post, the new tactic that they heard about on a podcast. And it's all reactionary. There's no scoreboard. There's no way to know if what you did on Tuesday had any impact on what happened on Friday. Now, the entrepreneur with an operating system wakes up and they already know what they're going to work on that day. They have a handful of leading indicators that they're tracking: conversations started, relationships deepened, offers made. They have simple automations handling the repetitive things like email sequences, scheduling, follow ups. And then, most importantly, they have visibility. They can look at a dashboard and they can say, these 3 activities are producing results. These 5 activities are producing nothing. I'm going to stop doing the 5 and double down on the 3. That's not complicated, but it requires a system, even a simple one running underneath all of the hustle. And this is where AI has completely changed everything for me. The systems that used to require a team of people or expensive software, I'm able to build those now with AI tools at a fraction of the cost and time. Automated follow ups, content workflows, client onboarding sequences, things that used to take hours and even days at Verizon with a full team, I can now set up in an afternoon. The tools exist, and most people just don't know that they're available, or they're too busy being busy to stop being to stop and build the one thing that could actually free them. And I think that this is a good time to mention, like, LD and I talk about a lot of examples. We talk about me and making 75,000 in 10 days, and he talks about making 250,000 over 18 months as an insurance adjuster. He just shared an example of his friend that made his entire salary in a fraction of the time. Now is a good time to call out that results are not guaranteed. We can talk about goals all day long. We can talk about 20K a month in under 20 hours a week. That is entirely possible, but it's a goal. It's not a promise of earnings, and your individual outcomes depend on your effort, expertise, and a number of other factors. So I'll turn it back over to you, LD.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I would say from my perspective, um, even if we all know it, and like I am, and I am like the super optimist. Like the flip side of that is that there will be people, no matter what, that just won't make it work, and they will stop, look around, and go do something else, and they will say, well, that didn't work, it failed, it's a scam, it's this, it's that. And so I'm really glad that you brought like the both sides of the table. And when it comes to being reactive versus operating with intention, it's night and day. So let's just jump into the Reddit story associated with that.
Yeah, so this one is titled "Wife Wants Me to Give Up My Business and Get a Paying Job." This is a 40-year-old married father of 3. His wife has been a stay-at-home parent for 8 years. He spent a number of years grinding it out in a tough but high-paying field, and then 2 years ago he left against his wife's wishes to
Mhm.
pursue an entrepreneurial business in the same industry. They had 4 years of living expenses banked. 2 years of savings remain at this point. The business currently earns zero revenue. His wife hates what he's doing, doesn't believe it will work, and their relationship has completely deteriorated. He wants one more year.
So I'm gonna keep it short on this one because I really want to pass this one off to you for obvious reasons, but and not for anything negative. But I've I've helped people in this scenario before, and a lot of people will say, dude, how do you help someone when like you're single with no kids and you're not married and blah blah blah? It's like, well, you know, there's plenty of industries out there, like a doctor who does heart surgery, but he's never had heart surgery, right? Like, come on. So with this, I would initially look at, I would want him to take accountability for from where he is now backwards. So from the day he started, the promises that were made, the things that were said, all of the stuff that led up to this point, because, and I'm not giving the wife a pass here. I just want to operate from a place of truth and not from a place of, high level emotion because things aren't necessarily working out. Right. I would also look at, like, when you guys got married, was this ever a part of the conversation? Right? Where it's like, and I know that it's like, well, what about the business side? Well, no, like, we have to address these things right here before we can ever get to the business side, because she might have thought that she was marrying this super stable, certain guy that had a career that he was cool in and that blah, 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 right? And you went from being that to trying to be some serial entrepreneur or some, like, entrepreneur bro. And I don't know if that's ultra fair to her in that sense. But again, there may have been promises, that things that you have said that you were going to do that didn't happen. So we have to acknowledge that. And once we evaluate that, we look at both sides of the coin and we figure out a happy middle. And maybe it won't be 50-50 middle. Maybe it'll be 70-30. I don't want 2 years. Just give me another 6 months. And you don't have to be excited. You don't have to fake happiness or anything like that. But just give me another 6 months. And if you can get her to agree to that, the next thing I would do is I would go back to the discovery. And I would say, hey, I need to find someone, a community, a person, an organization. I need to find something that is going to put me in a position to not make the mistakes or shortfalls that I made over the last previous 2 years. Maybe it's an accountability coach that you pay $400 a month for, that just holds you to the fire and doesn't let you just remain in your, soaking in your own juices, basically, right? Like, maybe it's something like Liftoff Lab, where it's a premium community where you are able to get around people who are not as further along as you are, people who are as further along as you are, kind of in the same lane. And then there's people also ahead of you that have gone and done what you are looking to do, and you're able to pick their brains and do all of these different things. So it's like, long story long is, I wouldn't just say, screw that, go harder. No, like, you have to, especially, I don't even want to say if you want to save your marriage. It's like, you're the leader of your marriage. Like, you should definitely, own up to all of the things that led up to this point. And if you're serious about that, great. Put your money where your mouth is. Say, hey, at 6 months, if we're not at this revenue amount with this profit percentage, I'll start filling out applications. Because kind of what it sounds like is, up until that point, you haven't had that level of fire to your feet. What's your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, this one is hard to hear, because the real cost of building without, it is the real cost of building without financial architectures. 2 years, zero revenue, savings is burning down, marriage is deteriorating, and he's asking for another year. And that's not a strategy. It feels more like a Hail Mary. And I say that with complete empathy and zero judgment, because I understand the conviction that it takes to bet on yourself. I understand the conviction that it takes to keep going when you're not getting the results that you're getting, and when you feel like you're letting your family down. And so, but conviction without a model is really just an expensive and risky prayer. So what stands out to me is what's missing from his story. He didn't mention marketing. He doesn't mention lead generation. He doesn't mention customer acquisition or any kind of feedback loop from the market. He's been building for 2 years in what sounds like total isolation, pure belief that if he builds it, they will come. And belief matters, but belief without data, again, without a scoreboard, without any mechanism to know if you're on the right track, that's how you burn through 4 years of savings and have nothing to show for it. So I was fortunate. I had a separation package as a financial bridge, but I still know what it feels like to look at your family and wonder if you're making the right call. That pressure doesn't make you think more clearly. It makes you think more desperately, and desperation is the enemy of good decisions and good architecture. So what I would say, in my opinion, this person needs isn't one more year of the same approach. Like you said, LD, he needs someone to help him look for what he has built, and then build out a model that produces revenue from it before the clock runs out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I really appreciate like your like technical um response, because sometimes I can get a little lost in like thinking that people already understand these things, right? Where it's like, no, for me, I'm like, dude, don't ruin your life and marriage because you're, and just looking at the story, I can already tell like he's not doing any of the things that you were talking about. And more than anything, excuse my French, but he's likely half-assing the majority of things that would be generating traffic, leads, and sales, right? So if there was a super quick action plan I would give him, it would be step number one is look at the top 3 problems that he's solved in the past related to his business. And these are problems where like people were like, oh my God, like where have you been all this time? Like we've really, really needed this, you know what I mean? And then I would take that, I would go do AI deep research on like what other arenas, what other industries need that solution, right? I would also go to school. School is skool.com, and you can go discover communities. And when you start typing in things like cooking, product management, like there's, you just go use their search bar, and you're going to see communities that have hundreds, if not thousands, of paying customers. And these are just people that just want to be around the community owner and the information that that person is actually sharing, right? So that would be step one, obviously discovering that. Step two, jumping in to the AI deep research, Perplexity or Claude would be my recommendations. And then going to school and looking on their platform. Like this isn't about brainstorming. This is about actually doing the research. And then once you have gathered all of that data, what you want to do is evaluate it like a corporate business case. Is there real demand? Are there people that are actually paying for what you're trying to offer in this business that you haven't made any money in? Is there a structured offer? And is there some level of a low maintenance community that's already present, right? And one of the big reasons why that would be ideal is because people pay for proximity. And even if they're not going to go sign up for the 10, 20, $50,000 package, if there's a healthy amount of people that are happy to pay 10, 20, 50, 100, $200 a month just to be able to have access to a specific person or expertise or a knowledge, there's something there, right? So a few expert insights. Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, said something that I think everyone watching should definitely hear. He said, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late, right? If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. And that is so true. Isn't that right, Ryan? Anyway, and that hits because most experts with corporate backgrounds are perfectionists, right? Because you had to be in corporate. Because if you don't do those things, then everyone knows what happens, right? You want it to be buttoned up. You want the offer to be polished, the branding to be right, the website to look professional. And I get it. That's how you operated in corporate. You didn't ship anything that wasn't ready. But here's the difference. In corporate, you had data, you had market research, you had customer feedback before you ever built anything. Right now, you're trying to build the perfect offer with zero data. You haven't tested anything. You haven't put it in front of real people. You're not being strategic. You're avoiding the moment where the market tells you something you don't want to hear. Launch the beta group, get the data, then build the real thing. The messy first version is the whole point. Peter Thiel said, I almost said competitive people, but competition is for losers. And I love this because it's just so profound. But I know that it sounds harsh and everything, but here's what I feel like he meant. And it's exactly what we're talking about right now. When you're playing the traffic game, more content, more ads, more eyeballs, you're competing with every single person on the internet who has a similar message. You're in a sea of content creators all fighting for attention, and you're trying to outvolume people who have been doing this full time for years. That's a losing game for someone with real expertise. But when you find a pocket of people with a toothache level pain and you package your specific expertise around solving that specific toothache level pain, you're not competing anymore. You're the only person in a room who can help them. And that's the shift from fighting for attention in a crowded market to being the obvious choice in a room where nobody else has what you have to offer. Alex Hormozy said, you don't need more leads, you need a better offer. And this is the one that this one should make everybody stop and just think for a quick second. Because most of the time when things aren't working, the instinct is to turn up the volume. More content, more ads, more money into lead generation. But the reason your time and money aren't producing results isn't because you don't have enough eyeballs, which, I believe that that's part of the problem for a lot of you guys, but it's not the main problem that you should focus a lot of your energy on out of the gate. It's because what you're putting in front of people isn't packaged around a pain point that makes them say, I need this solved yesterday. If your offer solves a nice to have, no amount of traffic fixes that. But if your offer solves a toothache, something urgent, something painful, something they can't ignore, you don't need 100,000 followers. You need the right offer in the right room, and the leads take care of themselves. Now, here's another way that I want you to think about this. It's like opening a restaurant on the busiest street in town before you've tested a single recipe. You've got the location, you've got the foot traffic, people are walking by your door every single day. But if food doesn't solve a craving, if nobody's walking in and saying, this is exactly what I was looking for, it doesn't matter how many people walk past it. They come in once, they don't come back, and you're left wondering why such a great location isn't working. That's what the traffic game looks like for most experts. You're pouring time and money into getting more people to see your offer, but the offer itself isn't solving a real craving. Traffic without a toothache is just noise. Traffic without a toothache offer is just noise. Fix the recipe first, then worry about the location. So, Ryan, that I spend a lot of time in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And do you know what the number one selling dish in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, beach town in Mexico? What is the number one highest performing dish that people want to eat? What do you think it is?
I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say hamburger with fries.
No. One more try, bro. One more try.
Spaghetti with meatballs.
Close. It's pasta, mainly Alfredo-based pastas. Why? Because it's Mexico, it should be tacos, burritos, things like that, right? No, it's freaking pasta. And the biggest reason why is because you have to look at who's going there and why they're coming. It's usually couples that are going there. So their idea of going on a date night on vacation, they automatically pair date night with Italian. But they get to do it in a beach town. Guess what they don't choose? They don't choose pho, ramen, things like that. Why? Because it's hot. And that's a hot soup-based thing, right? Even though they want it. So every one of the, Asian style restaurants that have come and gone in that area, that was why. There's only one like Asian style place, and it's a Thai place, and they have pad Thai. But guess what they do? Because I know like the people who manage it, they cook the food and they let it cool down before they bring it to the people. Wow. Right. And that is just such a great example, because these people will pay, man, it's crazy. It is crazy stuff. So with all that being said, man, a quick study from the SBA, the Small Business Administration, they have some data on this, and it backs up exactly what we're kind of talking about. Businesses that start with a clear target market and a specific problem to solve reach profitability significantly faster than businesses that start broad and try to narrow down later. And that sounds obvious when you hear it, but think about what most people do, man. They build a general offer, put it out to the widest possible audience, and hope the right people find them. That's starting broad, and the data says that's the slowest path to revenue. The discovery season we're talking about, taking time to find the toothache pockets, testing your packaging, getting real market feedback before you scale, that's not lost time. According to the data, that's actually the fastest path to revenue that sticks. You're not falling behind by going through the discovery phase. You're lapping the people who skipped it. And I'll tell you guys this as we move forward. Liftoff Live, what you're on right now, and Liftoff Lab wasn't just an idea a couple of weeks ago. This is something that we've been working on independently and collectively for months, if not, we're approaching a year plus. And it's one of those things where the beta groups, the small cohorts, the boot camps, the low ticket offers, the feedback calls, all of that went into us knowing exactly who we wanted to serve and what level of toothache they had that would be worth packaging our expertise around in order to serve that specific target audience, right? So again, this is not just something that was thrown together. We've been working to put something like this together that aligns with our life, allows us to do the things that we want to do. We don't have to necessarily become full-time content creators for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We can do things in a way that's in alignment with us and things move really, really well. So that kind of takes us into the last framework number 3, which is all about adjacent audiences, right? And when you look at it from that angle, here's what we know. Most experts believe the path to making real money on their own is the same path they've seen every guru teach. Build an audience, create a value ladder, scale with ads, hire a team. Low ticket to high ticket funnels, webinars, the whole playbook. And here's what that actually costs you. You're building someone else's business model with your name on it. That playbook was designed for full-time content creators and people who've been in the online space for years. And again, I've been around this stuff for 10 plus years now, and I've seen it time and time and time again, right? So for someone with real expertise and a life outside of the internet, it's just a different version of corporate. Different logo, same grind, worse benefits. And on top of that, you're trying to figure it out all along, right? So because you've managed budgets and led teams and hit targets for a decade or two, surely you should be able to figure out how to make money on your own. And every time you paid for help before, it didn't deliver, or it just didn't feel like something that you would want to pursue, or renew overall, right? So you stop trusting that help even exists. And I'll tell you this, here's what we've discovered overall. The method that actually works for experts isn't the guru playbook. It's one aligned offer built around your competitive advantage, deployed in rooms where your ideal clients already are. Not building an audience from scratch, not running ads to cold traffic, going where the people who need you already are, and being the most helpful person in the room. That's the adjacent audience strategy. And when you pair that with someone who can see the blind spots you can't see from inside your own business, that's when the whole thing unlocks, right? Because, here's the overall truth. You can't audit your own books while you're running the register. You're just too close to it. You've been staring at it too long, the same way you wouldn't expect someone in corporate to evaluate their own performance review. You can't expect yourself to see what's broken in your own model. When you get the method right and you let someone help you see what you're missing, You stop building the hard way. You stop reinventing wheels, and you start extracting real profit from the market using what you already have through a model that was designed around your life from day one. So, Brian, here's what I want people to understand about why we work well together, man. I bring the alignment and framework side. You bring the systems and operations and the Ernie off of the inside the NBA, right? So talk about what happens when someone has the right strategy but no system to execute it, and vice versa. Why do you need both?
Yeah, this is probably the thing I've become the most clear on over the last year. So, because I've seen both sides fail and I've lived both sides failing. So, let me paint the two pictures. Person number one has the right strategy. They know who they serve, they know what their offer should be. Someone like LD has helped them get fully aligned, but they have no system to execute it. So, they're doing everything manually. Every follow up is a mental note. Every client conversation is ad hoc. They know that they should be reaching out to 5 people a week, but there's no system reminding them, tracking it, or making it easy. So what happens? Life gets in the way. They skip a week, then 2 weeks, and then momentum dies. And it's not because the strategy was wrong, but because there was nothing underneath it to keep it moving forward. Alignment without systems is like having a perfect GPS and the destination with no battery in the car. Person number two is the opposite. And honestly, this was me during the content grind. I had systems, I had a posting schedule, I had templates, I had automation tools. Everything was running like clockwork because that's just who I am. I would have gone crazy if I didn't have those things. That's the first step in any of in when I'm starting anything new is figuring out my process. What is that going to look like? But I was automating the wrong thing. I was systematically creating content that wasn't aligned to who I was or who I was trying to reach. So I was doing the wrong thing really, really efficiently. And that's almost worse because the efficiency tricks you into thinking that it's working, that at some point things are just going to click and people are going to raise their hands. You're busy, you're consistent, the machine is running, but it's running in the wrong direction. Systems without alignment is like having a race car with a perfectly tuned engine pointed at a cliff. And that is why LD and I work well together. He designs the business so it can run on potentially on 15 to 20 hours a week. I specialize in the systems so that it actually does. And he makes sure you're doing the right things. I make sure the right things get done consistently without you having to hold it all on top of your head. So most people are trying to do one without the other. And that's exactly why they're either stuck or they're burnout.
Love it, man. Awesome stuff. Let's hop into the Reddit story for this person who's about to hang it up.
Yeah, so this one's titled Letting Go of the Coaching Business. And this is somebody who started a coaching business in the fall of 2020, had early success with high ticket sales in the first 6 months, then hit a wall of burnout, and the business never recovered. Despite posting on social media daily, they attracted zero clients. They invested tens of thousands of dollars in coaching programs and business coaching with very little financial return to show for it. They're now deciding to let go of the business entirely, but they note that their coaching certification is a useful skill that they can apply in a salaried position, and that salaried position will pay much more than what they were generating in the business.
Yeah. So I'll say this. First off, I love that you're here, Ryan, because I know your take on this is going to be different than mine. And we need a balance, right? So that's the first thing. But looking at this scenario, I think it like this person may be too far gone, that like whatever was inside of them that motivated them to pursue this, it it may the light may be off, right? So it's like at that point, once the light is off, it's so difficult to get someone to be willing to turn it back on. Now, if it's dim, if it's flickering, that's different. But if it's just off and they're checked out, it's best that they just go back to corporate overall, because she's right. Like you can, or he or she, like you can literally, leverage this experience And I'm pretty sure this person has contacts that they'll be able to tap into to be able to, get them something back. Now, if the light's flickering and they're like, man, blah, 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 I think that live, this episode would be something that they would need to listen to 2 to 3 times, take some notes, and just make the decision on being honest with themselves that they took a path that didn't really lead to most people having success, and saying, well, there is another way and it's working for other people and it's centered around me. So it gives me the highest probability of making it work. Do I want to pursue that? I think that, any tactics or strategies I could say, sure. But we need to address, do you want to turn the light back on full volume and give it another go? Because, if you don't address that point, then one of my favorite sayings comes into play. A person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. So you might be able to help this person for a week, a month. But if they never wanted to turn the light back on, but you wanted them to turn it back on so that you could charge them, then it's one of those things where they're gonna go back. They're gonna, even if they don't turn it off, they will grab something and throw it at the light so it breaks and they don't have to deal with ever having to deal with power or not. It's like, I can just go back to my regular life. And again, being someone who has done numerous different things in life, and I've seen friends and family and colleagues and travel buddies and all the rest of this stuff, I've seen people turn that light off. I've seen people not just turn it off, I've seen people stop paying their electricity bill. Not like literally, but figuratively, right? And just let it expire. So it's one of those things where I've seen enough of this to know that that's the first thing that we're going to need to address. So what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, there's there's just so much that comes to mind for me on this one, and I agree with what you're saying, in the sense that somebody can get so far gone that they're not willing to look back. And so I was, I'll speak from my own personal experience. I was lucky to have you as a coach, because I can sit here right now and I can close my eyes and picture a conversation that we had where I was just banging my head against the wall creating content. And I was so burnout and frustrated in that moment, whatever was going on that week. And we were having a coaching call, and it was something that you said to me that kind of burned that conversation into my mind. It's like, I, I think you were just more mad at the situation, and you were recognizing what I was going through. But you said to me that I could just go back and walk on to any corporate job and they would hire me in a heartbeat, right? And that's not
Yeah.
something that I was telling myself. Do you remember that conversation?
I do now. Yeah.
I was not telling myself that in that moment, or in that situation, right? Like, it was more of just complete and utter frustration and burnout. But that, and it probably was flickering at that point, the light. But that reignited it, because it was in that moment, it was the reminder, stark reminder, that that was absolutely not what I wanted to do, and I was willing to do whatever I needed to do. And I think that that was around the time also that something clicked in your head, that and then helped connect the dot for me, that I was focusing on the wrong things. Like, I was absolutely going down the wrong path, trying to sell master resale rights products, digital products, affiliate marketing. You're like, what is he doing? Because you obviously realized that, I walked away from a 6-figure salary, where I was highly respected, and everybody couldn't say enough good things about the work that I did, and so why are we trying to sell somebody else's course? Um, so this one really resonates because I lived that pattern. I also had, if we fast forward past that moment in time when we recalibrated and we started talking about starting a group program and leveraging my skills in a one-to-many model, I had early high ticket sales, and those came from warm relationships, from uh, shocker, from adjacent audiences, not from the social media grind. And the thing that caught me, that I got caught up from that point on, was when it was in between referrals and people, where there was were coming in. So now we're getting back to the lack of the system, and that's where I was going back to. I was left to just posting daily, and it produced exactly what it produced for the person from the story, nothing. So um and then for him to spend tens of thousands in coaching programs, all promising to fix the revenue problem with the same result every time, like, I can understand why that person ultimately gave up. And that's why the ending really stands out to me, that letting go of the coaching business, but saying that the certification itself was still valuable in a salaried position. So that, to me, is a very important signal, even though that this person has decided to give up and go back, and maybe they'll change their mind, to your point, at someday, LD. But the skill underneath all of that was real. The expertise was real. What failed wasn't them. They didn't fail as a person. It was the method. And it highlights daily social media content, and just relying solely on high ticket sales funnels. It was never the right vehicle for that person, but nobody showed them a different way to deploy what they had.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And speaking of showing them the way, let's jump into the action plan, man. Awesome stuff, bro. Awesome. Um, the right room finder. Now, again, I'm telling you right now, and you can call me whatever you want to call me, but I don't like I don't like taking something super robust and then cutting off a sliver of it and then marketing it as if it's this super robust thing. Every action plan in every one of these lives, it's meant for you to be able to go do something right now. But just know that every single action plan is rooted in a more robust playbook or framework that is inside Liftoff Lab. And as things progress, like, we'll be able to spend more time giving more robust versions in these episodes and stuff. But for now, 3 quick steps about the right room finder. I want you to think about and make a list of your favorite clients in corporate. I'm talking about the people that you enjoyed helping. What industry was it? What industry was it? What problems did they have that you helped them solve? Like, what made them a joy to work with or work for, right? And step 2, it's like, what are you naturally drawn to, like, right now? An example is for Ryan, he was drawn to, like, this AI community because, like, he was getting really big into AI being a force multiplier for him, X, Y, and Z. For me, it was copywriting, digital marketing, and things like that. And these are two seasons, 2 opportunities that they came from our interests, and they created, at least $75,000, right? So I want you, again, step 2 is, what are you naturally drawn to right now? Make that list. Maybe it's paddle. I have no idea. Maybe it's traveling the world, right? I have no idea, but you do. So make that list. What are you naturally drawn to right now? For me, I'm naturally drawn to learning Portuguese because I want to start spending more time in Brazil. So it's like, me being who I am, I know that the better I get at Portuguese, the better I am able to be a bridge for businesses that want to work with English speaking professionals and experts, right? Just like for Spanish, I speak Spanish enough to be peligroso, all right? So don't go testing me randomly or something like that. But because of that, I have been able to sign on clients that weren't super confident in their English, but they felt comfortable enough with my Spanish, right? So for me, Portuguese is next up. Step 3 is connect those dots. Figure out where there's overlap between who you love helping and where your interests naturally put you. And yeah, again, like, I kind of do things out of order a little bit, but the overall point is I'm learning Portuguese right now. And I'm genuinely excited and naturally drawn to learning languages being someone who's traveled to over 100 countries, I know that effort is the love language of the world. And when you can just fumble through someone else's language with, optimism and genuine interest in your eyes, that helps when you are in a foreign country and you don't know anyone, right? So effort is the love language of the world. And my goal in any language is to be able to sound like a confident 8-year-old boy. Now, with all of that being said, that takes us to the expert insights. Daniel Priestley said something that kind of reframes the entire conversation. And I'm going to tell you that these are going to be beating this like a dead horse, just like we already know. He said, you don't need a bigger audience. You need a more aligned one. And that's the whole game right there. The Guru Playbook says grow your following, get to 10K, get to 100K, build the audience first, and then figure out how to monetize them. But the alignment first approach says something completely different. It says find the 50 people, maybe even fewer, who are already looking for exactly what you offer and go be in the room with them. You don't need 100,000 followers when 50 of the right people already exist in a room you can walk into today. And this does not mean like figuratively, like literally, like, hey, go to this meetup. It's like you can do this online as well. That's a fundamentally different game, and it's the game that actually works for someone with real expertise who doesn't have the time or the desire to become a full-time content creator. Chris Do said that the best marketing is a great product in the right hands. And I want everyone watching to really sit with that for a second, because the product, your expertise, is already great. You spent 10, 15, 20 years building it. You've solved real problems for real companies. You've delivered results that people paid you well for. The product is not the problem. The distribution is the problem. You don't need better marketing. You need a prettier, you don't need a prettier website or a more clever funnel. You need to put what you already have in front of the right people. That's it. The right hands, the right room. When a great product meets the right person with a real toothache, the selling takes care of itself. You just have to stop trying to sell to everyone and start finding the specific people who need exactly what you've got. Seth Godin said something that sounds simple, but will change everything if you actually internalize it. He said, everyone is not your customer. Everyone is not your customer. And the moment you accept that and you truly accept it, your entire approach shifts. You stop trying to reach everyone. You stop posting content designed to appeal to the widest audience possible. You stop running ads to cold traffic, hoping someone out there might be interested. And you start doing something much more powerful. You start finding the specific rooms where people already are that have a need for what you actually offer. That's the shift from the traffic game to the relationship game. It's the shift from broadcasting to proximity. It's the exact shift that produced 75K in 10 days, not from reaching more people, from reaching the right people. And I would add to that, because it's like hitting me right now. This is not about showing up into the right room and feeling inauthentic. This is not showing up and shaking hands, kissing babies because you have an agenda. This is about taking inventory of how good of a person you actually are as a person and making the decision that if you're not hitting the mark that you need to hit, that you need to go become a better person. There's a book. It's called The Go Giver. Go read that book. There's like 10 different versions, right? Go read the original and then pick the additional version that makes more sense for you and go read that. Because when you can show up as a go-giver into any room, when you can show up in any room as a go-giver, like Ryan, like he is a natural at it. But why? Because he's a genuinely good person, right? So when you can do that, the game changes. The game absolutely changes. All right. So, man, so many stories. Like one of the last ones related to this is there was an ex-VP of sales. He had 20 plus years of experience leading sales teams, managing multi-million-dollar pipelines. You know, when he decided to go out on his own, he was convinced he needed to build a course. I have no idea why, but because that just sounds crazy to me right now. But well, I do know why. because that's what everyone told him, right? Package your expertise into a digital product, put it online, and sell it. So he spent 6 months building a 12 module program on sales methodology. And this thing was thorough. Like, he put everything he knew into it. He recorded every module, built the workbooks, set up the platform, 6 months of work. When he launched it to his email list of 200 people, he got 4 sales. 4. 6 months of building for 4 sales. Then someone in his network, a former colleague, reached out and asked if he'd be willing to do a half-day workshop for someone else's sales team in person. He said yes. He charged $5,000 for the full day. The company loved it. They referred him to 2 other companies, and within 90 days, he had $30,000 in workshop bookings. No ads, no funnel, no content strategy. The course he spent 6 months building sat on the shelf. The strategic relationships, the people who already knew him, already trusted him, already knew what he was capable of, those paid the bills. He didn't need a course. He needed to pick up the phone. And I would take this a step further, because I know some people was like, well, I don't want to rely on my current network to do any of that. And I get it. I get it 100%. But the reality of it is, this is not about always looking back to your current network. This is about the focus of getting in the right rooms. Now, with the speed of trust, there may be people in your network that can help get you into the room, or help you find the right rooms and get access to them quicker, right? But even if you don't go that route, the skill of finding the right rooms is still worth its weight in gold. All right. Last thing, Harvard Business Review did research on entrepreneurial partnerships, specifically on what happens when founders have complementary skills versus going solo. And the findings were pretty dramatic. Businesses with complementary co-founders outperformed solo founders across nearly every metric they measured: revenue, survival rate, speed to profitability. It wasn't even close. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. A solo founder has blind spots they literally cannot see because they're too close to the business. But a partnership where one person sees what the other person misses, my man, where the strengths are complementary, not duplicated, that's where the acceleration happens. The data doesn't just support getting help. It shows that the right partnership is one of the strongest predictors of whether a business succeeds or fails. Solo doesn't mean strong. Solo doesn't mean independent. Solo means slow. And in a lot of cases, it means stuck. Right? So we talked about 3 shifts that I want you to, really, really take away from this. Number 1 is your expertise is your actual asset. Number 2 is start with the discovery season, or go back to the discovery season instead of trying to play the traffic game. And number 3 is focus on getting in the right room instead of the right funnel. Because like we always say, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. And in order to do all of that, run these 4 steps, run the expertise extraction audit, run the toothache finder, go over to school, leverage AI, let the data show you what's really, really going on, run the right room finder, figure out your interests plus your expertise, and leverage AI to go and help you find those rooms. Take the quiz. The link is in the description for the quiz. The waitlist link is also in there. Whether you take the quiz or you just get on the waitlist, you're going to be on the waitlist regardless. So just know that that's what that looks like. And I'm going to leave you with this. All right. So you already know what your number is. The problem isn't the number. Nobody showed you how to hit it without recreating the soul-sucking reality that you experienced in corporate. Your expertise isn't baggage. It's your unfair advantage. Stop running from it. Time and money don't belong in the traffic game. Discovery season. Focus on that. Find the toothache pockets. Do the testing. Get the data before you scale. You don't need more leads. You need a better offer in a better room. The right room equals a room you're already drawn to. So follow your interests, not something that you think, I bet they live in there. Like if you have that thought, then you're operating from the wrong space. You need to say, man, I'm interested in AI and I have a product and strategy and operations background. I'm going to keep I'm going to stay interested in AI. I'm going to rock it out like that. For me, man, I love being able to help people see how this thing right here can help them get what they want. Not unbeknownst to me, that's copywriting, that's digital marketing. So I was interested in that, and that turned into six figures in multiple different industries, right? Here's the biggest one. You can't audit your own books while you're running the register. Getting help is going to be it's going to be the highest ROI decision that you can make. And I would even add getting better at evaluating help is going to help you to avoid any of the time and money mistakes that you've made in the past when it came to choosing courses, communities, programs, experts. Because I promise you, the loudest is not always the best. If you've ever gone to Mexico, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, as soon as you grab your bags and you come out, there are people standing out there saying, taxi, 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 taxi. They're going to be charging the most. You're going to get the worst experience, but they have to get to you first, because if you ever take the time and evaluate your other options, you're going to realize that a private transfer is much better. And it costs about the same, maybe $10 or $20 more than what you would be paying a cramped taxi or a cramped shuttle. So it's one of those things where it's not just about making better decisions and making better choices. It's about getting better at making decisions, getting better at evaluating things to make better choices. So that's all I have. I'm gonna hand it off to you, Ryan.
500 posts in 14 months and one client, then one shift that was to the right model that led to the right room and the right help. And that produced 75K in 10 days. So the skills didn't change, the architecture did. And if you're somebody who's been on this journey for a while, you have the expertise, you have the experience, but the model just isn't working. We get it. Both of us lived it. This series is different from anything you've seen because we're not teaching theory. We're showing you what we discovered, what we built, and what actually works when you stop following somebody else's playbook and start building around who you already are. So if any of this hit home for you today, the single best thing you can do right now is to take the quiz. It's in the description below, 2 to 3 minutes. It'll show you exactly where you are across the life areas and where to focus first. And hit subscribe, because this is episode 3 in a series that's going to change how you think about building a business around your life. And in the next episode, we're talking about time, the 15 to 20 hour week. That sounds impossible. How we went from 60 to 80 hour weeks producing nothing to part-time hours producing real revenue, and why the hours you're working might be the thing that's keeping you stuck. We'll see you there.